Welcome to the Hack the Entrepreneur Top 10, where we dive into the 10 most popular, deepest diving, and most transformative interviews from over 200 of the world's most interesting and brightest entrepreneurs. To get the full experience and to hear new episodes every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, visit hacktheentrepreneur.com.
Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. It's so cool if you decide to join me again today. I am your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today is the president and founder of PledgeMusic, a direct-to-fan company that offers musicians a unique way to engage with their fans during the music-making process. He's an independent musician who received the A&R Worldwide Digital Executive of the Year Award in 2014 and appeared in the 2013 Billboard 40 Under 40 Power Players list. My guest's recent engagements include keynote addresses and panels at events such as Canadian Music Week and GRAMMY Camp. He also gained a position on the board of directors for the Future of Music Coalition this year. Now, let's hack Benji Rogers. FreshBooks makes dead simple cloud accounting software that has transformed how 5 million entrepreneurs deal with their day-to-day paperwork. As the exclusive sponsor of Hack the Entrepreneur's Top 10, FreshBooks is sharing their top 10 tips on how entrepreneurs can save time, reduce stress, and make their businesses run more smoothly. Tip number 8, leave a lasting impression. FreshBooks makes it easy to customize your invoice and let the personality of your brand shine through. You can add your own logo, set your payment terms, and even personalize your thank you emails. Remembering all the small details can even get you paid faster. The research shows that branded invoices have a 10% higher rate of getting paid on time. And this is just a fraction of what FreshBooks can do for you. Go right now and get 30 days free to feel the full effect of FreshBooks on you and your small business. Go to freshbooks.com/hack and enter hack in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Welcome back to another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. I have a really special guest today. Benji, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I think this is going to be fun.
Absolutely.
All right, Benji, let's jump straight into this. As an entrepreneur, can you tell me what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
I think, it's funny, the question's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. I wrote a blog many years ago about this, and I think what it is I found that I stay incredibly restless. And I'm never really content with sort of just going, there it is, it's done. There's always another way to look at it and another way to hack. And I think that quite often you can kind of get in a lane with what you're doing, whether it's, you start a business, it does well, and you just carry on doing that. And you don't look around those corners, and a restlessness to where like you wake up at night kind of stressing the problem going, wait a second, and it's not like a worry, it's more a restless energy. And I know a lot of people that run, that have founded companies and whatnot have a lot of energy about it. But that restlessness I find is something that I think has really seen us through some of the more interesting times and helped me personally look around a whole bunch of corners that, it was never just sort of like, that's how it is, so there it goes. When I was starting the business, I was tapped on the shoulder 1,000 times and told, listen, this isn't how it works. You should just, But I never kind of, it was always like, you keep jabbing and poking and hacking and trying to find a different way. When we founded the business in the beginning, I was told by all the payment processors, it won't work. You can't do it. It doesn't work that way. That's not how the internet works. That's not how payments work. And I was like, okay. And for months, it was this restless, endless push towards getting it done. And I think that similarly, the disruption we see in the music space has been one in which people have gone, but, I sell albums. Oops, what happened to those? But we sell, compact discs. Oops, there they go, And ironically, we don't make vinyl anymore. Well, now there's 6-month waiting list for vinyl, So when we get comfortable with things is when they start to get, kind of start to push us off balance. And I think that ultimately, if you can find a balance in your restlessness, a balance in your knowing that it's never going to fall one way or the other, and it's rolling with the punches, but it's almost like that sort of restlessness to dig and scratch and find another way. Particularly when someone says, you don't understand, this is how it is, I think that that's when you should start to ask the most questions and kind of let that restlessness guide you through. So that was the one thing that I thought of when that question came up.
That's awesome. And I think that that's probably something that, is very, very much needed, not just for you, but for people going out and starting something from nothing, right? You're going to have people telling you that it doesn't work. Like payment processors. No, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of almost a certain level of, restless, but also stubbornness in a way of having people telling you it can't be done, but being like, no, it's going to be, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Yeah. And also there, I'd say this, when I first had the idea for Pledge, I thought I'll just explain idea, someone else will make it and I don't have to worry about it. And I never thought I would be the kind of the unsure person in the scenario. And a lot of it is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so the second I would kind of like, okay, great, we got breathing room, that's when ideas would start to come. And that's when you're kind of like, you're always holding back because you've got 40 ideas for every one that you're actually going to be able to pull up at that time. And what I love is that, I was told today at least 3 times, we can't do it, that's not possible, this is not here. And so I'm trying to find a way through because I just don't accept it most of the time. And there's a moment where you say, okay, done, no more pushing, like that clearly won't work. It's not about that or about being pig-headed about it.
Right.
But I think that it does require a stubbornness, but it's also, there's a moment where you go with the flow and there's a moment where you kind of, you have to stick your back up and say, no, hold on a second. But I remember being on the phone with credit card processors back in the day, and they would be like, yeah, you literally, you cannot take money in the way that you operate. And I said, okay, so when you book a hotel room, right, you don't pay for it right then and there, you pay for it when you leave. Yes. Okay, why can't we do that? Well, it doesn't work that way, sir. Okay, well, how does it work? Because I've seen it work, and it's working there, and it says Visa or MasterCard on it. And I think it's also just, one of the things about starting a business, a startup, or being entrepreneurial is that you're battling into a space, right? You're going, something isn't working and I'm going to disrupt that, or I'm going to, disintermediate these 2 players. And when you're doing that, you're going into an inherently unstable environment, right? You just sort of need to know that. And what I found is you'll have one big win and say, right, there it is, I can stop now. And that's just never the case. There's always another mountain to climb. But I know that certain people will kind of get in the lane and find it very hard to shift out of it. And I think you got to be willing to throw away a couple of great ideas to come to, the better one. And also, be okay to be wrong and say, right, got it, moved on. And I think that, there's actually a clothing shop in New York, and he says in it, Graham Fowler, and when you buy something from him, he gives you this letter, and it basically says, stay restless, stay lucky. And I really like that expression, and he makes good shirts too.
That's
so,
awesome.
I'm talking about him with you.
Yeah, totally. Stay restless, stay lucky. Luck really is about staying restless, and like luck doesn't come find you unless you're out there.
It's very true.
Putting yourself out, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And your idea of how you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, have you always been comfortable in uncomfortable situations? Like, is this innate within Benji, or is this something that you've had to push and grow within yourself?
Yeah. So I read a lot of Marcus Aurelius for that part. Basically, I think about planets orbiting and things that are much, much bigger than me, and my individual calm or panic is not there. My wife always says to me, you don't seem like you're freaking out. And I'm like, but I am. And she's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is me freaking out. So no, you get comfortable with it, but it never kind of goes away. I was describing it once that when I used to go on stage as a performer, I would have a kind of sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. And after a while, that was, before I got used to it, that was nerves. and then it becomes part of your practice, and then it becomes, if that's not there, something's wrong, right? So Pledge was my first business, and I'm still learning to this day, and I've got amazing mentors and people that I trust and respect and know really well in the business, who will give me a straight talking answer. But it is inherently unstable, and you got to get used to that. And when you're leading a team, or you're on a stage about to go on, I've been in scenarios whereby I'll have gotten off a plane, I'll go to walk up and be on a panel, and the host of the panel will say, well, rather than do a panel, I thought you could just do a 20-minute speech on, I don't know, European economic policy and how it affects art and culture. And you're like, okay. So I remember writing down 4 things, A, don't F this up. B, like this, and you kind of like, you just sit there and go through, and you're like, okay, what are 3 things I can talk about? And you go, European economic culture, what is it?
Wow.
So you're always going to be thrown in these situations, and you should see them as an exciting thing and not as a miserable thing. But I think also you have to, surrender the outcome. I believe that you're responsible for the effort at all times, but the outcome is going to, in a lot of cases, remain out of your hands. But, if you can be, like my wife again was saying to me the other day, she's like, how are you handling, this kind of period of uncertainty and strangeness? And I said to her, well, if I freak out, I'm not going to make a clearer or better decision than I am if I can remain calm. And, a lot of it is I meditate as well. So, you learn to let things roll off. And what it really comes down to is I owe my team, the amazing people that make the engine of this company run, everything. And they deserve a calm and collected me, because I'm going to make a better decision. And when heads get hot and people get stressed out and burned out, they're just, you're not seeing clearly, you're in the moment. And if you can kind of zoom outwards and say, okay, in the constellation of possibilities, this is the one I got to make a decision on right now. And you get used to it, but you should never get used to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, you get, knowing I will have to make decisions that are uncomfortable or difficult every day is okay. But I think also I would be lying if I said I'm not a really sensitive person. I am, and it really does affect me. But in the moment where you're making the decision or you're having a ride with something very quickly, there's just no bringing in nervous, frenetic, panicked energy does not help and will not inform the decision any better, I don't think. I haven't found. So
Wow. That's impressive. It is, man. It's really like, and I mean, you sound like somebody who, I mean, obviously meditates and reads Marcus Aurelius and takes these like grander things and then really kind of, I mean, it puts perspective on what's going on, right? And it really allows you to, and although I think when we do freak out, we know overall that we shouldn't be freaking out and that it's not going to help our team. It's not going to help me make a more informed decision, but still to have that control within to be able to do that is impressive. Really impressive.
No, but I got to tell you, I mean, look, it's imperfect and sometimes it doesn't work out. But again, knowing that it's not always going to work that way kind of calms you down, and it's part of the job description, right? I mean, 1,000 things can and will go wrong all the time. And you just know that going into it. There are no certainties. But what I do know is that, someone, the reason like Marcus Aurelius is someone that, I've been reading since for a long time. And this was an emperor who had to deal with massive, responsibilities. Like someone like Abraham Lincoln, who is a great hero, who surrounded himself by warring factions, who dealt with the splitting of a country in two, right? And the abolition of slavery and all these amazing things, had to make decisions. And I think of those people in power and what they weigh. And I go, mine is not trivial because it's important to the people that we work with. It's everything.
Mhm.
But I come back to that. I'm in control of how I react to this. I'm not in control with what's out there. I'm responsible for the effort. The outcome is another matter. And so if you go into it with what's going to get us through this the quickest, fastest, best way possible, it's never, I've found personally, by freaking out. And if you're the one person who's calm in the room, you can often promote calm. I guarantee you this, if you're the one freaking out, you're going to create more of that. Because it's addictive, right? It's an addictive thing. You're like, if my wife's a full-time mom, which is probably a 10 times harder job than anyone who started a business has ever done, And her vexations and what she will stress about are like our child's future. And, that's a major one, right? That's a life that you're, and so, but both of us kind of, we have our freak out moments for sure. But as I've gotten older, I've just realized that like I'm a better team member if I'm the one who's saying what will guide us to the best decision here. And people need to blow off steam and do their thing. And part of it is just going inwards and finding that. And I think it's a great asset and strength if you can find it in yourself. And the other thing is it's not written anywhere in stone or in your biology that you have to freak out when stressful things come. There's no written down requirement that this is what this person has to do. It's not genetically programmed to panic, right? It's a choice. And the first time that you harness it is very powerful. And then you can kind of pull out of it. And a lot of times meditation will allow you to kind of step outside, look in. And meditation isn't like having to sit there in an orange robe on a mat. You can sit in a chair and get it right, or use the Headspace app or whatever it is that you do. But you find whatever it is will center you and allow you to look from the outside. And the way I put it is, I will try anything that will work. There's nothing too weird. I found myself in a Zen monastery in Australia. I found myself on an airplane, that's 4 hours delayed, trying to not freak out because it's hot, or because I'm missing something. So it's you wrestle with and search for whatever will work. But the guiding principle I have is if I'm about to feel the panic coming on or a strangeness, to go, me freaking out will not help the situation. And I'm responsible for the effort, but the outcome is quite often beyond you. And knowing that, you can still reach for the correct outcome and outline it and plan it and do all that you can. But to shoulder it all would not be sensible.
Oh yeah, I love it. Okay, so stay incredibly restless. It's your one thing, and also being comfortable in being uncomfortable. So every blog post, every expert now talks about the 80-20 rule, right? 20%, get 80% of the results. Do what you're good at, delegate the rest. Can you, Benji, within your business, tell me something that you are absolutely not good at?
Yeah, I'm not a really good financial guy. And so I have to surround myself with people who know a lot more about finance than I do. The example I'll give you is when I first started Pledge, it was my one, I knew it was my Achilles heel going in. I'm not a guy that reads spreadsheets in a natural way. And I remember sitting with Karen, who was our phenomenal accountant at the time. And I said to her, so Karen, listen, people have invested money in this, and I take that incredibly seriously. So I'm not leaving this room until I understand what you're showing me here. And she very patiently for hours kind of walked me through the basics of it. And it takes a lot of effort and concentration to get it. I understand all of the concepts and I get it all. It's just not fluid for me. It's not like, I could, you could play me music and I can probably play it back for you note for note afterwards. But the financial side, is wizardry to me. And that said, I'm responsible for it. When I was CEO of the company and when I do these things, I do have a grasp, but when I see people model outwards, these massive complex models, it's just masterful to me. So, that is where I get and rely on incredibly smart people around me to really guide those decisions so that I can make them. And it's an art form in and of itself, understanding and being comfortable with that side of things. But yeah, that's the main thing. I'm not I'm team guy, concept guy, build guy, startup guy. I can, those things I'm very comfortable with. When it comes to sit down and write out financial projections, I can do it, but it takes all the effort I have. And I've just found that, you get yourself with a great person who really fluidly speaks that language, and you can become, unstoppable. So yes, I've always surrounded myself with brilliant financial people to the best of my ability.
Nice. And looking back, did you realize this soon enough, or did you realize this too late? And then, is this one of the things that you held on to and I can figure this stuff out and do this, and then it's somebody stepped in and no, Ben, you got to let this go, man?
No, I flat out told everyone when they got involved, that I consider one of my skills is, getting a team rallied around, a call to action or, communicating is always been very natural to me. But this is a challenge. And so I stepped in from the very word go, and I was like, I want protection around me in this area. particularly when I was the CEO and working with the board. When I get involved with startups, I can now see, I advise a lot of startups and I get so much out of that. I can see the holes in what they're talking about. I can see a lot of those things because I've seen a lot of business plans now, and I really do understand it a lot more. But when it goes down to the nuances, I would be in meetings and I would be Googling stuff. Like, it was a vastly important part of things. I read all the books I could. I try to understand as much as possible. I didn't spend a huge, I didn't go to learn to be an accountant or any stretch. But, I give a lot to the team that do the finance because, I want it to be in the best hands that it can possibly be. So, I don't think I learned that too late. I think I learned it in exactly the right time. And I'm also never afraid to ask questions about it either. I never, as a rule, let the conversation go too far without me saying, stop, I need you to walk me through this. I'm not too proud to ask those questions. I think they're really important ones to ask, So, yeah.
Nice.
That's
yeah,
what I'd say.
And it feels like you would have noticed this sort of at the right time because you seem to have a really keen self-awareness, which not everybody does, especially when we get really involved at the start of a business, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably, like you said, how you are lucky now. You get to advise startups, which I think that's probably right there. The power of an advisor is because we don't always, when we're inside of it as the founders or the co-founders, right? Sometimes we lack self-awareness. We lack the stepping outside and looking at it but then you can have you looking over top and being like, actually, John, you're not very good at the finances.
Yeah.
We need to bring someone in.
Yeah. What I've also found is when someone says to you, this is my weak point, it's a very powerful thing to say, because what you're able to do then is say, okay, this is someone who knows that weakness. Whereas what I've seen entrepreneurs do is, no, I can do it all. And the answer is very few really do have all the chops in one place. And I think that that's a healthy thing, right? Because you want other perspectives. I was writing a blog piece the other day, and our head of comms and the CEO were basically, we were working on it together, and it was driving me nuts because I was like, I'm right, God damn it, I'm right. But they made it better. They did make it better. And I walked right into the room afterwards and I said, listen, just so you know, never let me end when I say I'm ended. Carry on pushing me as hard as you can, because they got better out of me. And I think if you feel that you're the master of it all, you're not going to allow your team to push you. And it's not, and you need to delineate, but at the same time, I hire people. There are people in this office right now and on this team, globally, that are so smart and so on top of their game. And if I'm sitting there saying I'm the master of that, I'm not going to win it. The company doesn't win it. And, I'm proud of what I've done, but I'm also proud, of what the girls and guys here are doing every day, because they're unbelievably talented. I want the next person to rise up who will take over what I do. That would be an amazing thrill for me. And someone who's got skills in other areas is always a compliment. Can never lose out with smart people around you.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. All right, Benji, we're going to wrap up on something I'm calling the entrepreneurial gap.
Right.
So as entrepreneurs and as dreamers, right, we are always looking and pushing forward. And we're setting goals 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years out. And before we hit those goals, personally and within our businesses, we set bigger, loftier ones into the future. Everything will be better in 6 months when I get to write that book. When my business does this, I'll be successful when I get there. But we oftentimes fail, which I don't know if you will, but because you have that self-awareness, which I love. But we oftentimes do fail to stop and turn around and look at everything we've come through, everything we've done, and everything we've accomplished, even the mistakes we've made, and just kind of take it all in. But I would love, Benji, if you could right now, stop, turn around, look at your career as an entrepreneur, and just tell me how you feel about it.
Yeah. So it's a great question. And I'll tell you this, if it ended tomorrow, it was the honor and ride of my life to have been even one small part of it. And when I get emails from artists that we've worked with saying, you've changed my life, you have literally altered the course, this album would not exist without you. And when that turns into 500 emails that say that, you just go, this is changing people every day. And, Yeah, if it all ended tomorrow, it is honestly the honor of my life. And I've worked with some of the smartest, boldest, bravest people ever. And I'm immensely proud of what we created. And there's always more that you want to do, right? And there's always, I mean, I spend more time on a whiteboard not sleeping than I think, a lot. And I'll be like, baby, I've had this idea. And my wife will be like, okay, I'm going to bed. You carry on. And then she'll come out 4 hours later and like, you need to go to sleep. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's going to work with the blockchain. And it'll be like, but ultimately, yeah, I've built an app, I built a company, I've built an advisory role. I'm with the Future Music Coalition. Like I'm so immensely proud of it that if it ended tomorrow, I could draw a line under it and say, whoa, that was incredible. But it wouldn't stop because I think it's become a part of who I am. The startup skill is a really odd one because quite often it's rallying around disparate parts. Pledge was begun with four people who'd never been in the same room. And, the last app I built, I think it was $400 we spent total on building the entire thing, And, it's just sort of like, I love to create. I thought when I quit music that it was sort of over creatively. What I didn't realize is that the web, the startup world is actually just a different canvas to paint on. And, when I see, hundreds of thousands of people coming to the website and I see album after album being made and putting in the charts and I see that it's like what a ride. And I think the mission is good and the mission always has been good and the intention has always been right and it's worth fighting for. And some battles you're going to lose and that's okay. As I said, you're responsible for the effort and the outcome is dependent on a whole bunch of other things. But if it ended tomorrow, I'd be immensely proud, and I'd be able to look back and show my daughter when she's older. She's 3.5 right now. When she's older, and say, "That's what I built. I surrounded myself with brilliant people. Together, we created something that was bigger than the sum of all of our parts put together. And this is the next one we're going to do, and this is the next thing we're going to do." And the evolution of what it was from when it started to where it is has been just a miraculous thing to watch. And a lot of it was because I was able to let go of control of a huge amount and allow really smart people to get on with what they did and trust them with a vision for making it fair and equitable for everyone involved. And, so that's what I'd say.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And the web is just a different canvas to paint on. Oh, that's so awesome. And I so totally believe it. I mean, coming from music and then kind of leaving it for a bit and the more stuff I create on the internet, the more I even get back into music because it's just a creative thing that just allows you to extend it out. It's amazing.
And think of it now, the reach that this allows us is just incredible. I was speaking with Amanda Palmer at South by a couple of years ago, and she was saying, like, what time has there been in history where you can write 120 characters or 140 characters and it will be exactly replicated by millions of people? Like, what an opportunity, right? And it puts pressure on content and it puts pressure on all kinds of things. But ultimately, a canvas like this has never existed in history. And it's only going to get better. I really do believe that. So, hold on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Benji. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We've got to talk about your business in passing, but could you specifically tell the listener where they can go find out more about you and your business?
Sure. If you go to pledgemusic.com, that's PledgeMusic. You can hit me up at Benji K Rogers on Twitter, BenjiKrogers. And that's how you can get hold of us and me.
Excellent. Yeah, I will link to Pledge Music and Benji's Twitter in the show notes because actually you are on there a lot on Twitter because that's actually how we got introduced to have this. And just to go back, actually, because you mentioned you read a lot of Marcus Aurelius, and where would be a starting point for somebody? What would be the book to read? Could you?
Oh, the only book he wrote was called The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Yeah.
Oh, and I thought that was the only one. I didn't know that was the only one, but that's the only one I've read.
Yeah, no. And basically, there's a newer translation that came out, and it's a stunning translation by, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone here, but it's a really amazing translation by Gregory Hayes. And this is a book that's been read for centuries, literally. And it's just, he's got a wonderful way of, his Stoic philosophy is very readable today because it was written often in shorthand and it's quick little things that you can read. And just understanding someone who had to make unbelievably large decisions and whose life was unbelievably tumultuous and lived in a time where, I think he lost his wife and his, best friend tried to backstab him, and, he was losing the empire, and still he got sat down to write these unbelievable, verses and notes. And it's just like a manual for living. There's that. And then, again, meditate. Why not?
Exactly.
What's the worst that can happen if you meditated for 10 days, for 10 minutes a day?
Exactly. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I will link to the Meditations by Gregory, translation by Gregory Hayes as well in the show notes, so everyone can find it really, really easily. But Benji, thank you again so much for taking this time to stop by with me. And please keep doing what you're doing, because it's having a profound effect on a lot of people. And it's just really awesome to watch.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Benji, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun. I'm sort of a sucker for the whole music thing, as you know, the whole band connection. I mean, it really helped. But you are a smart man. And you're running a business that has this ripple effect that is going out and helping so many musicians and bands do their thing and get paid for it. It's awesome. It's really, 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 truly awesome. And I thank you so much. So you're out there listening, and I'm sure you were as in awe and inspired by Benji as I was, because he's a smart person. And we talked about Marcus Aurelius. We talked about into the Meditations and using advisors and just a lot of stuff. But it was a 33-minute conversation. And he said just a lot of things. He said a lot of smart things, a lot of things that really got me thinking. And then I go back through the conversation, and what happens? He said one thing, and it just kept sticking in my mind, that one thing that he kept saying. Did you get it? Did you hear it? Let's do it. Let's find the hack.
I was writing a blog piece the other day, and our head of comms and the CEO were basically, we were working on it together, and it was driving me nuts because I was like, I'm right, God damn it, I'm right. But they made it better. They did make it better. And I walked right into the room afterwards, and I said, listen, just so you know, never let me end when I say I'm ended. Carry on pushing me as hard as you can, because they got better out of me. And I think if you feel that you're the master of it all, you're not going to allow your team to push you. And it's not, and you need to delineate, but at the same time, I hire people. There are people in this office right now and on this team, globally, that are so smart and so on top of their game. And if I'm sitting there saying I'm the master of that, I'm not going to win it. The company doesn't win it.
And that's the hack. Benji. Yes. You said a lot of things in this conversation, but that 1 minute or 56 seconds that it was is so brilliant. And it's brilliant for somebody building a big business like you are. And it's brilliant for somebody starting out with a business and they're one person or a 2-person show. It's so important to, one thing, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, people that can help you, people that can force you to grow. And also you have to be stubborn enough to push ahead and know that this is your idea, but at the same time be willing to take other people's ideas and let them, like his whole, I'm right, God damn it, I'm right. I love that, because it's so true. We feel that way. We do. And we have to a certain degree. We have to make these things come from our brain and just like become real, create businesses. We're literally taking ideas from our head and creating something out of nothing. That takes a certain amount of just, I'm right, God damn it. But at the same time, surrounding yourself with other people. Benji's got this big company and like advisors and people around him that can do that and push him. But even if you are solo, or even if you have only like an assistant or something, you can surround yourself with people that will push you. This happened to me with, joining Rainmaker.fm. I was creating what I thought was a great show, and it was great. It was people liked it and it was doing well. It got the attention of Copyblogger and Rainmaker, and that's amazing. But joining them now and having like editors and producers, it makes me step up my game. It makes me really have to push and up that level of output and what I'm doing. And it's improved my show greatly, even without them saying that you have to do it. It's just there's a certain level and then you have to push to that. And I think that that's essential to put into place in your business. And if you can't put it right into place in your business, put it into place around you with people that you can find online or in your own city or anywhere. And people that will demand better of you, people that will demand you to grow, people that will demand you to learn and just push forward. End rant. Thanks, Benji. That was amazing. All right, that was a lot of fun. I thank you so much for stopping by once again and spending the time with Benji and I. It's been a lot of fun. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. If you haven't had a chance, hacktheentrepreneur.com/iTunes. I would love a rating and review. I was reading them actually earlier today, some new ones on there, and they were awesome. Unfortunately, with Apple, it gives me a name, but you can put any sort of name in there. But if you do have Twitter as well, I'd love to have your Twitter handle added to your review. And then I could come on Twitter and thank you personally. It means a lot. It really, really does. And I appreciate every single one of them, whether I can thank you or not. But yeah, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And please, until next time, keep hacking the entrepreneur.